Welcome to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. We're so glad you're here. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. I am your host, Alan Johnson, with a very special guest, Robert Paulson.
What? Wait, who is Robert Paulson and why does that name mean something
Why
to me?
does that name ring a bell? That's the question.
Oh, Fight Club. It's the
That's
Fight
right.
Club. Yeah, Fight Club.
Well, the first rule about Fight Club is you don't talk
Yes.
about... I don't know why I woke up this morning with the name Robert Paulson in my head, but...
Were you thinking about Fight Club?
I'm not sure. But no, for those of you who have just tuned in for the first time ever, welcome. Alan here with my co-host Paul.
Yes. Apparently, we're just doing a Fight Club intro in the year 2025. We had some technical difficulties today, so Alan's totally in a loopy space too, which happens every time there's technical difficulties. So
yes. Yeah. Which is hilarious because I work in pro audio and I can't get a damn interface to work. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So
yes.
Paul, how have you been?
I am good. I'm doing good. I'm excited that we're doing another episode that people have asked for.
Yeah,
which is true. Fun. So yeah, how about you? Doing good?
I am. It's been a good week. It's been a wild week. Celebrated a day of birth, since the last recording. More importantly, I got a new guitar.
Yes, you did. You got another telly to add to the stable.
I did. And I think I'm going to make some videos on it because I really like it. And I played a bit more of it last night and really am enjoying it. And for those of you who are dying to know, I got a Fender American Vintage 2 77 Telecaster. And the reason I did that was for two reasons. One, I really wanted to try out the Kunafe pickups that Fender has been touting, having remade the last couple of years. And this is my first chance to get that. But also, I wanted a rosewood neck, and that's what this one has. I guess about a year and a half or so ago, Paul, you and I went down the hole of me wanting every guitar possible, and you telling me no for so many of them because they just weren't me. And I appreciate that about you because you know what is me, but it also helped me accept and embrace that I am a Telecaster with a humbucker in the neck guy, and I am perfectly fine with that. So I now have two.
Yeah, one with a maple neck, one with a rosewood, different pickups, different configs, but good guitars.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and, as of recording today at about 10 a.m. Eastern time on the 18th, Maris has yet to release their new product because they're still sleeping over on the West Coast. But I feel so confident in what it is that they're going to be releasing that I'm willing to possibly put egg on my face and say what I think this is going to be that they're going to release today, knowing that the episode will drop tomorrow. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense.
Do you think that, would you like us to attempt to guess?
I'm not going to guess, even though, you know what, I feel like you can tell you did figure out something, and I think you should just go for sharing that now that it's going to be out by the time we do this.
The nomenclature might be different, but I'm also pretty sure it won't be. I'm pretty damn sure that Maris has just dropped, or about to drop, or yesterday dropped, their third modular in a box pedal, and this one being the Enzo X. If I'm right, then yay. If I'm not, then what the hell, guys?
Yeah, well, so your reasoning behind this is the little star compassy looking O on the Enzo, on the original yellow pedal, has appeared in all of the promo they've done of whatever the new thing is, which I had not noticed because I had frankly not looked that close. And then I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely that. Once I saw the O everywhere.
Double frankly, I had not looked that close either, but I had seen comments on social media saying, kind of pointing it out. And then I was like, yeah, but also I've wanted it. So,
well, it also makes logical sense to go. I mean, they have the Mercury X, the LVX, and the other pedals like the Auto Bit and the Enzo and the Hydra all sort of lend themselves to being in a modular together of like weird, funky things.
Yeah.
I would also love that because of the fact that I like all of those pedals individually, but my biggest beef with them is not knowing where the parameters are because there's no screens. So having all of those with screens would be very cool. So
yes, yeah, and I'm just imagining. I'm just imagining, but we'll stop imagining and we'll wait.
Yes, we'll be able to talk about it soon. So, so let's get into the episode because we are doing a revisitation of our introductory signal. What do we call it? Signal chain series?
It was signal chain series. And that's what we started out with. And amazingly, Paul, that was like 20 episodes ago we started, 20 plus. It's been that many.
We're like almost at 40, aren't we?
No. No, we're not.
No?
Okay. No, I think this is 24.
All right,
34, 24. I don't know.
We're not at 30.
Does anybody know what episode this is?
Yeah. But so it has been a while. I'm actually going to look how many episodes we're at. This is episode 24. So
okay.
I'm not near 40 at all.
Not near 40.
But actually, you know what? After the next episode, we'll be closer to 40 than 0. So
okay.
Fair, we are now.
Fair. We are now, but that's also fair to say about the next ones.
Yeah.
Let's talk about let's revamp revisit.
I love the organization of our brains on this episode so far. Yes.
It's so good. We've lost so many listeners.
At least I'm not drinking my iced coffee on air this time.
Yeah.
So
hopefully, our listening base is people that fall somewhere in the brain waves between the two of us, and they're like, man, somebody gets me here. I'm not sure which one it is, if it's both or neither, but I feel
somebody.
Heard.
I feel
somebody
seen.
Does.
All right, so we are getting into a redux of the signal chain series, but and actually kind of out of your signal chain, but also omnipresent in your signal chain. Ooh. We're talking about power today.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I was glad you had this idea and that people had requested doing something like this because I'm a big nerd about power actually and wanting to make sure it's good. And you want to kind of introduce the origins of this idea?
Sure. I was on Reddit and had seen someone kind of ask how like the YouTube influencers, made their content with such clean audio, guitar influencers to be specific. And a lot of people, threw their ideas down, some of whom make content for social media, some of whom do not. But one person had said that the three things that are most likely happening when it comes to content on YouTube, Instagram, whatever, from said influencers. One being most likely using amp modelers, not real amps.
I was going to say that's a really big factor actually, because once you introduce a real amp, there's all sorts of weirdness that can occur, even if you have the most clean power in the world, just because of how it works.
Right. Number two, it's cleaning the signal up either in pretty much in post. Or number three, in this one, they were referring to a clean power source. So in this instance, the reference was to clean power coming out of your wall. And then that kind of trickled into a multifaceted conversation about the various things that help when it comes to your guitar signal and how you can improve the quality of your sound and your tone via power. I don't want to call them updates because that's an odd word to use, but improvements on equipment that can actually help the sound signal be cleaner.
And I will just speak to the three things you mentioned because I think maybe do this slightly differently, even though we make videos for the same channel. I use an amp modeler 90% of the time for videos, which is the Dream 65 from Universal Audio. I use both a power conditioner, isolated power supply, and then I also had my home studio rewired. Actually,
look at
so
you.
It's actually on a different circuit than the rest of my house as well, so that it's like
okay. So we just went bougie.
Yeah, it's isolated away from. That was a thing when I moved in. I also wanted to add like LED lights to the room, so I was like, while you're in there, what would it take to do this? And they're like, oh, not too much. I was like, can we just do that too? So that was like the extra. But I actually, for the sake of transparency, I don't actually do any post editing on any of my video demos. I don't know if you knew that or noticed that, but mine is just, I don't even add like compression. It's just whatever the signal in. I just make sure it's not peaking anywhere before I record, because that's obvious. Like I try and hit it the hardest I will. And then I just actually, what you hear on my demos is exactly what it sounds like going in. There's nothing done in post. Do you do post editing? This is news to me because we never talked. We weirdly never talked about this because we both just make our videos.
Do it. In terms of post, I do edit, but it's more of just master mutes on certain channels. So like, and that's probably more. It is not like when when I'm doing a no talking video, like a first sounds kind of thing. That there's no post on that at all. Mine is just kind of leveling out, making sure. Because I'll get to that in a second. But if I'm doing a review or talking about a pedal on the video, I'm not muting my guitar signal as I'm talking. I'm just recording raw both audios, right, for my microphone and for the pedal coming in. And so what I'll do is in post, I will mute the sections of both channels that aren't being used at that time. So when I'm talking, I'm most likely muting my guitar signal when I'm talking, or at least, reducing the volume down. If I'm talking over like a pad or something, I'll pull the volume down just for audibility's sake on the and understanding what I'm saying. And then when I'm not talking, when I'm just playing, I'm muting my microphone, which doesn't have any bearing on the guitar signals. No compression though. When I'm same thing. I work on gain structure before I hit record, but then in post, I will bring the whole thing up, like the whole entire volume of the final mix up, just to maximize the loss that's going to happen on YouTube.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there's no EQ, no compression from my end.
Yeah, so I mean, we basically do it pretty similarly. Actually, I'm trying to think. I haven't done many talking videos because you usually do the technical deep dive on things, because I'm like, I'll do the first sounds, you do the technical. But I don't remember actually for the one I definitely did for the partner, the Old Blood Noise partner.
You talked on that one.
Yeah, but I think my guitar is just humming in the background. So we'll just have to,
We'll have to go back and listen. It depends I forget if you sent me that one to edit. If you sent me that to edit, I may have muted that section out.
There we go. I don't know. Here we go.
Oh, man.
Talking through behind the scenes on the podcast yet again. But no, I think so. Back to the issue at hand. I just wanted to talk through that because I was like, to answer the actual question, like there's a bunch of stuff YouTubers do. And I think Amp Modelers is actually probably the chief influence here of like reducing weird oddities that can happen and make your signal pristine in that situation. But that being said, power is like probably one of the most finicky things in the guitar pedal community. Amps. So I have lived in terrible apartments from the 1700s that have like no grounding. I have lived in all sorts of weird situations with power. So I have, as a musician, been trying to figure out how to make things not sound weird and wonky. And I mean, it's even like the kind of thing with when you have a tube amp, but I know this is like something that I've seen discussed in forums and talked about with people, but like sometimes your amp just sounds bad on certain days. And then you're like, you can't do anything about it. You're like, today sounds bad or noisier than others. And I actually, before I had like a studio setup in my house, power conditioning to me is like probably one of the most important things to get the wonkiness out of your signal. Because when it comes down to it, we're like, guitar pedals are just all physics manipulation, and electricity is the thing that it's manipulating. And I mean, I've even been shocked by things before. I don't know if that's happened to you. Like
surprised, like, oh.
No, like touched my guitar strings and like completed a circuit.
Yes.
So clean power for me, I've always like carried around like one of the like Furman like power strips. Because especially playing in like different venues where I remember when we had James Wooten on talking about live sound, sound, like clean power is not a necessity to a venue existing either.
Right.
It's just, you kind of work with what you get. Sometimes you're in a basement that has, wiring from the night. Sometimes you have somewhere where it's built last year and they have like perfectly clean power. So I have always just brought in my live setup a power conditioner, and actually that's something I started doing like after the time I got shocked, actually, because I was like, I don't really want to complete the circuit with my guitar strings.
Right.
But for me, I think that is in my like individual tone journey of reducing noise and weirdness, the power conditioner is like chiefest among that. And then the isolated power supply. Yeah. Because I've gone through many different power supplies, and if you do not have truly isolated ones, your cabling and pedals will start to do weird things, and you will hear it for sure.
Well, let's get back to that part in a sec. I just want to give my 2 cents on the power conditioner. I actually use I think it's the SS6B. It's the Furman. It's like the 3x3. It's the six drops or 6 spots to plug things in, but it's not a rack unit. I don't have that ability in where I'm at right now. I don't have a rack. Instead of buying this massive $200 rack system, I wanted to see what it would do. So I just bought the 6XS, the SS6B, whatever it is. It works great. I think also
that's the same one I have. I just looked it up.
Yeah, nice.
I also have a rack mount one, but I have this one on my.
Okay. Yeah. See, again, you're bougie. It's important to like going
particular, not bougie.
Sure. Say what you want. Going back to the amp side of it, like if you have real amps, yes, you want to have those on the same circuit as your pedal board.
That's very important because otherwise you're going to get 60 cycle hum no matter what too.
Yeah. And not the other podcast and YouTube channel that is good. The 60 cycle hum is actually that's a good one. But
yes,
in terms of the actual presence of a 60 cycle hum is one of the things you definitely want to avoid. So, power conditioning, absolutely great. Make sure all of your gear is on it and on the same circuit. You can run an extension cord or like a long IEC cable to your amp if you need. That's no big deal. The other side of going back another step further, but what real amps will do when you're recording for a thing like YouTube, you're actually then introducing all of the natural acoustics of the room and the polar patterns and EQ responses of the microphone that you're using. That can actually make a big change in the sound that you're getting. And so, if you're in,
not to mention with that too, is there's certain amps that have like reverse polarity as part of the way that their circuit works.
Right.
So then you end up with like some just odd transient things that can happen too.
You do. And so all of that contributes to the ultimate sound that you're getting. So just keep that in mind. Less about power on that end, but more about just kind of the transients that you're introducing into the signal because of just the other acoustic properties that are present. Okay, let's skip over to the third one that we just touched base on, the isolated power supplies for your pedals.
Yeah, so
because this actually, I would argue, to interrupt you, I would argue that I would tell somebody to get an isolated power supply before they get a power conditioner if they could only get one.
Okay. I can actually attest to the fact that the other direction is true because I just tested this the other day, not knowing we were going to do this, because I was building a pedal board for my partner, and I was just using a one spot and daisy chain on pedals, which is like the least isolated option.
Yes.
You could possibly have. And when I plugged it in to the wall without a power conditioner, there was a lot of noise, a lot of hum, a lot of like baseline, just white noise coming from plugging in even just like one pedal to that. When I plugged it into the power conditioner, it was like nearly silent.
Okay.
So not to completely refute your point, but I just discovered this the other day. Now, to be fair, everything I'm using is also like high-end stuff, like the pedals as well as even like the power supply I was using. It was on one spot. It was like the Strymon one that puts off like 2,000 milliamps. So there's a lot of juice. It's not isolated, but there's a lot of juice to pull from where you're not like running up against any limits.
Okay, let's do this. Let's tell people they have to get both. But the Furman 6B that we both use, kind of, you have another one for your rack.
Yeah, the other one I have, just to mention it, I have the Furman MX2.
Okay.
Which or M8X2. It's actually got like 8 different slots, and it's nice because they're spaced out for some of the bigger power supplies on the back too. So.
Okay, so I'm looking both of them up online for people to just kind of get an idea. The SS6B you can get for about $35. Amazon, Sweetwater, and there's other brands that you can get too, but Furman is a very well trusted brand. It looks like the MX2
is on sale right now, actually.
Yeah,
for a pretty good price.
A really good price. It's $85 on Sweetwater today. I mean, maybe not just today, but the day as a recording and looking online, it's 85 down from like 125. So that's a really good deal.
Yeah.
If you have,
to be fair, I just put it on my Sweetwater credit card, so I don't know what it cost when I bought it, but.
Oh man. So let's just do an aside and a more, like an NBC more, Paul and I don't condone the use of buying gear on credit. If you're using your credit card wisely, that's a different thing, getting points and whatnot. But if you don't have the money to pay it off before you get interest. How about that? If you're accruing interest because of using a credit card on gear, we recommend just being patient.
Yes, or just getting a Sweetwater credit card because it's 0 interest for like 3
credit
years.
card works too.
So 0 interest for like 2 to 3 years really does wonders.
I am on the fence. I really don't need that in my life. So I'm going to stick with my guns. But oh my goodness, you can get.
I will say my one more pitch, and this is not a Sweetwater, we're not a Sweetwater advertising agency, but I will say with that Sweetwater credit card, if you get it around Black Friday when they start to do stuff, sometimes they go as far as 4 years 0 interest at that time of year, which is crazy. And I've used that many times where I'm like, oh, this is the thing. I'll just wait till Black Friday when this will be 4 years 0 interest. Then I just get it. And it's like $12 a month for something. And that's the best. So
amazing.
Just a little pitch for the Sweetwater credit card and how it's awesome. So,
okay. So everyone is going to sweetwater.com and /the pedal collaborative. Just kidding. We do have no affiliation with Sweetwater yet. Sweetwater, call us.
Yeah. Listen to us. We're trying to get people to buy power conditioners.
Sweetwater algorithms, SEO, influencers. Okay, so
yeah, just saying SEO, that's how it works.
That's how it works. Let's see. So we have about 10 minutes here before we have to wrap this one up. So let's talk about isolated power supplies for your pedals.
Yes, yeah, we've been bouncing around a lot between power.
So you mentioned a daisy chain, which is actually the opposite of an isolated power supply. An isolated power supply is essentially when every power drop on a power supply for pedals is isolated from the other ones.
It's as if you plugged each thing into its own individual power supply, as opposed to sucking from one big source together.
Yeah. And the problem with sucking one big source together, there's a couple of problems. One, a lot of the newer digital and especially multi-effects pedals pull a lot of juice. They use a lot of milliamps, like in excess of 300 milliamps.
And even then, I know we talked about this on one of the early episodes, but sometimes if you're using especially some of the bigger digital ones, if it says it's rated for like 250, it's still nice to give it like 300 to 500 just to be safe.
Yep. But you can get some interplay, and especially with fuzz pedals and other distortion and overdrive pedals going into at the beginning of your chain. If they're in the same daisy chain as your digital effects, you also can bring in some unwanted noise and hum. So definitely recommend everybody get, if you're doing multiple pedals, get an isolated power supply. You can get them with as little as, 5 taps. And a tap or drop, as I'm calling them, are the plugs, right? Power outputs. Yes.
So I think that's probably the proper term. I don't.
Oh, it's our podcast. We can say what we want.
Yeah, I think people who've listened to us know that by now, but yes.
Yeah. You can get them as many as 22. You can actually get, you can get them where they can daisy chain together because they have outputs for another power supply. If that makes sense.
Yes.
You can, there's really no limit as to how many isolated power supply outputs you can have. Some of them also give you options to do different voltages. So, I mainly use right now a Fender Engine Room Level 12, which gives me 12 individual isolated outputs at 500 milliamps each. There's 3 things that it won't power, and I'll get to that in a second. But 2 of the taps have the ability to go from 9 volts to 12 volts to 18 volt, which when you're doing some of the Keeley pedals, when you're doing some of the overdrive pedals, you actually can get more headroom and less drive. It's like a combination of that when you're giving it more power. Obviously, the manufacturer has to approve that much power, voltage. But all that to be said, the only things that I'm not powering from my engine room are my Stomp, my H90, and then the Neon Egg Planetarium, because that is like this center positive 15 volt monster thing. I don't even know. So, yeah, it's weird. I
use the same one, but I do power my Stomp because I have the current doubler for it.
Oh, look at you. Current
doubler. That it's also, it changes the tip because it's weird on the Stomp.
Yes. So you could do that. Yeah, you can use current doublers. You can use reverse polarity cables. Those are all They're all available. And, a power supply that we haven't tried, or at least I haven't tried, but I want to, the Walrus Canvas stuff, because their new one, the Walrus Canvas HP, it was designed for things like the Stomp. So it has ridiculous amounts of power on board for those
I just want to
things.
get that one because they're so tiny.
Yeah, and they're pretty.
They can fit on any but I don't really care if it's under my pedal board. I don't care if it's pretty.
But if you were to put it on top of your pedal board, Paul,
then I would be using valuable space where a pedal could go.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know how to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, or how to answer that. But yeah, so in summation of this winding road, the answer to the question of how you get excess or get rid of excess noise, I think you said at the beginning, threefold. It's, not necessarily using an amp modeler, potentially cropping things, and then your power. And in this case, I'm recommending a power conditioner and an isolated power supply. That way, you're not dealing with ground loops. You're not dealing with dirty power. You're not dealing with if somebody turns on, if you live in an apartment, this used to happen to me all the time, someone in the other unit would turn on their vacuum and all of a sudden my pedal board would be humming with weird noise. Old apartments, weird stuff. So an isolated power supply and a power conditioner will do wonders no matter where you're recording or what your setup is or where you're playing, because you're going to reduce as many outside factors that are trying to attack your poor guitar pedals and introduce weirdness. Squeals, hums, pops, hisses, cycling sounds. Power conditioner, isolated power supply. That is the recipe for success.
There you go. And then when you have clean sound and a clean signal, then you can't hide your bad playing behind that, or my bad playing behind that. So you can actually work on your technique. Yeah,
overdrive and reverb were meant to hide those things, but not additional noise. So
I think that was the entire creation of shoegaze was.
Yeah, that's exactly, you're correct. So yeah, I feel like we're going to do more about this topic because honestly, I was thinking it through when you brought this up as a bringing back signal chain series and talking about power. I feel like if I were to aggregate all the questions I ever received from people who come to me with guitar pedal questions across my life and the internet, power and how to power different things is pretty common actually, because it is confusing too, to the point of, we mentioned different types of pedals, different types of tips, reverse negative. There's all of these things that it's not uncommon to see on different forums online, somebody who accidentally fries a pedal, because it's very confusing if you don't know what you're doing for the first time.
Yeah.
So
it is.
That being said, if you ever have questions, feel free to drop them on this episode or chat us somewhere, Instagram, whatever, because we've probably done the wrong thing. I know I've plugged things in wrong before and been really sad and not known something about a pedal. So learn from my mistakes, and I don't know what to do all the time, but I know what not to do.
I think there's two smells that you just kind of, once you smell it, you can't get it out of your head. One, that's the smell of burning hair.
Yes.
And two, the smell of plugging in a center positive power supply into your center negative pedal.
I've only done that once, and it was devastating. A lot of the whammies are weird with that too.
Well, whammies are just weird.
Yeah, they're cool pedals, but they're very weird. But yeah, I guess on that, let's wrap up this episode.
Let's do it at the at the people as they're thinking about whammies and burned hair. Let's leave them with that.
Yes. So thank you all. We're gonna be, I guess this is the second to last episode of February.
The second to last episode of February.
We're going to be in March. So,
we are.
That being said, I'll mention our fire relief thing a couple more times here. So we still have the LA fire relief donations going on. So for those of you who haven't heard about it or seen anything about it, currently any purchase on our Patreon of a preset pack, we have specific ones that are created for this. All donations through February, or all purchases through February, are being donated to the Airbnb LA 211 Fire Relief Fund for housing for those who were affected by the fires. So if you're looking at a preset pack that we have up there for the Maris pedals, go ahead and buy one, because it goes to a good cause for this month. Not just to us continuing to build more presets. It goes to something else this month. And on that note too, I'll just mention a little plug. Our Patreon, we are going to be adding so the forthcoming Maris pedal we talked about, we're probably going to make presets for, assuming is what we think it is.
We will. If it's the Enzo X, it's going to happen.
So there'll be more presets beyond just the Mercury X and LVX. But in addition to that, we are going to be doing some things for the Line 6 HX Stomp. That's probably next up after the Maris pedals. A few Strymon Timeline preset packs for those of you who have not made the jump to the LVX world. And eventually, once we wrap our heads around it, some Eventide H90 things.
Yeah, once I can figure out how to use it.
Yeah, we're Alan's figuring it out. I haven't played with it yet. We're gonna figure it out.
It's probably a Paul Brain thing.
It might be. Well, I feel like we've mentioned that before. But so just wanted to plug, like, for those of you who do support us, we really appreciate it. We love making things and love that you're part of this. There's more to come for those of you who maybe felt left out because you didn't buy an LVX or a Mercury X, and you're like, I wish I could buy a preset pack that Alan or Paul made. Well, guess what?
You can.
Coming soon.
It's your lucky time of the life.
So, yes, we'll probably be introducing a lot more of that coming up here. So, anyhow, have a good week, and we'll talk to you all soon.
All right, everybody. Take care.